Hello and welcome to Barbershop Books Story Time with Alvin Irby. That's me. Today's story. The moon. I have hiccups. The moon over star. The moon over star. I wonder if this girl right here, if her name is Star. Why do I think that? Well, the story is called The Moon Over Star. There's a moon, but I don't see a star. So maybe this little girl's name is Star? I don't know. Well, I'm really looking forward to getting into this story. Let's find out what the story is all about. The Moon Over Star. And look at all these cool pictures. In this picture, it looks like, I don't know, something traveling around the earth and traveling around the moon. I wonder if this story is about outer space. It does have moon in the title, and the character is kind of looking up as if she's looking at the moon. And on the back, it even has a cool picture of the moon. Well, there's only one way to find out what this story is all about. Let's get into it. Once upon a summer's morning in 1969, whoa, that's a little while ago, 1969, Grandpa led the singing in church, the light of Sunday gleaming on his silvery head. Through the open windows, our voices sailed over Star, our town. Oh, the town is called Star. Then we bowed our heads and prayed for the astronauts, Neil Armstrong, Edwin Aldrin Jr., and Michael Collins. If all went well, a spaceship would land on the moon today. Whoa! This story, I think, is about the astronauts who landed on the moon in 1969. Can you believe it? There were people who actually traveled all the way to the moon. And I dreamed that maybe one day I could go to the moon too. So whoever is telling us this story, this person wants to go to the moon. Would you want to go to the moon? I don't know if I would want to go out into outer space. Seems a little scary, but it could also be exciting too. My gramps, wait a second, I didn't show you the picture. Well, here we are, and it looks like there are people in church maybe singing songs or hymns. You see them? Yep. My gramps, that's just like grandpa for short. My gramps thought the space program was a waste of money, but I knew he was praying for them too. I thought about the astronauts' kids and wondered if they were scared. Scared but proud. I know I'd be. I slipped my hand into my dad's and whispered so only I could hear, God, please bless the astronauts' children too. So this story is about, I think, a little girl who is thinking about the astronauts who are traveling to the moon. Not today, silly, but in 1969. At that time, on that day, that was the only thing that every single person in the entire United States and even around the world, that's all they were thinking about. So look, here's a picture of the three astronauts in their spaceship traveling to the moon. And no humans had ever traveled to the moon before. So I can only imagine how scary it must have been for it to be the first time. Once upon a summer's noon, my cousins and I scouted Gran's watermelon patch. Gran's, I think that's short for grandma. For the biggest one, it took 3 of us to carry it to the tub of ice. 3.5, counting my littlest cousin Lacey. We decorated the picnic table with pails of wildflowers. So these kids grabbed the biggest watermelon they could find, and it took like 3 of them to carry, and they carried it over to a tub of ice. Why do you think they were bringing this watermelon over to a tub of ice? Probably because they wanted the watermelon to cool off. If it had been sitting out in the sun, well, it was probably a really hot watermelon. So by putting it in a tub of ice, it would cool down so that when they ate it, it would be nice and refreshing. We decorated the picnic table with pails of wildflower. Then, our chores done, we built our own spaceship. These kids built a spaceship from scraps we found in the barn. Oh, they found stuff around the barn and around their house, and they built a make-believe spaceship. Look at all the kids. One of them has a ladder. Do you see the long ladder? Oh, 2 of them are holding it. And this girl has a big wheel. This little girl has a bucket. And what is she holding? I'm not sure. Well, guess what? They're using make-believe to construct their own spaceship. T minus 15 seconds. 12, 11, 10, 9. As the oldest grandchild, I got to be launch controller and Commander Armstrong. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have liftoff. We closed our eyes, imagining with all our might the rumble, the roar, and the force of the Saturn rocket. So these kids were imagining themselves as astronauts blasting off into the sky. This sounds so cool. How do you use your imagination? Have you ever imagined yourself as astronauts? What about as something else, like a teacher, or a mom or dad, or a doctor? What do you imagine yourself as? How do you use your imagination? Blasting the spaceship into the stars. Then we were rushing through space at 25,000 miles per hour. Do you know how fast it is? That's how fast it is. 25,000 miles an hour. That's super duper fast. Well, let's take a look at the picture. Do you see all of the children using their imagination? They set up the ladder and they put the bucket at the top of the ladder. And look, this girl is under the ladder like an astronaut. And everyone is imagining themselves as astronauts, traveling at 25,000 miles per hour. Remember how fast it is? 25,000 miles an hour is, it's that fast. For those of you who are just tuning in to Barbershop Books story time, we're reading a story called The Moon Over Star. And at first, I thought maybe Star was the name of one of the characters, but we found out while reading the story that Star is actually the name of their town. So, in 1969, that was a little while ago, there were astronauts who flew to the moon in a spaceship. And this story is all about the story of those astronauts and a group of kids who are imagining themselves traveling out in space. And look, here's a picture of the launch of the spaceship. Wow. Do you see all of the fire that's coming out of the bottom of the rocket? I bet it's super duper hot. I wonder how many miles it is to the moon. Cousin Carrie said, I've been reading the moon stories in the paper, so I knew. About 240,000 miles, I said. And some scientists say it's moving away from us and inches so further every year. I also knew that in May 1961, a month before I was born, President John F. Kennedy had said America would send men to the moon before the decade was out. Now that President Kennedy was in heaven, I wondered if he could see the astronauts. Was he smiling to know his dream was about to come true? So, here's a picture of the moon. And if you look really close, you can see the spaceship traveling toward the moon. Do you remember how fast it's traveling? The astronaut spaceship is traveling at 25,000 miles an hour. Do you know how fast it is? It's super fast. It's like, that's like how fast it is. Let's keep reading. That afternoon, we were helping Gramps with the tractor when Gran hollered, "Come quick! They're landing!" Gramps kept right on tinkering with the engine. The rest of us ran pell-mell for the house and squirmed around the television screen as it glowed with equal parts of moon and the spaceship called Eagle. So, here's their grandpa. Do you see him? It looks like he has a toolbox and he's tinkering with the trailer. But their grandma ran to the porch and screamed to everybody that the spaceship is about to land on the moon. So all of the kids start running toward the house because they're going to watch on TV, I guess, the spaceship land? How cool would that be? We heard the voice of Commander Armstrong directing the landing. "Forward, forward," he said. Then the newsman we all knew, Walter Cronkite, exclaimed, "Man on the moon!" Okay, I don't know if that's exactly how he sounded, but it kind of sounded like a news person voice. Okay, for a split second, we were silent. Then, the whole universe must have been, as we waited and waited to hear the voice of an astronaut 240,000 miles away. And then what? You got to keep reading. But look at the entire family crowded around the TV set. They're all watching TV. This is before the internet. This is before computers. If anyone wanted to know what was going on, guess what? They had to actually listen on the radio or they had to watch it on TV. Today, you can look on your cell phone. You can watch something on your computer or your iPad. There's a lot of different ways that you can get information. But back then, everyone had to crowd around the radio or the television set. Houston, Tranquility Base here, Commander Armstrong said. The Eagle has landed. Boy, did we cheer, all of the cousins and even the grown-ups, all except Gramps. I remember something he'd once said. Why spend all that money to go to the moon when there are so many folks in need right here on Earth? Because we can. I'd almost shouted, but caught myself. I began to wonder, then what's Grandpa's dream had been? I wonder what her grandpa's dream had been. I don't know. From the time he was little, he had worked the farm, doing the same jobs day to day, season to season. And so look, all the cousins and even some of the adults were celebrating. They were jumping up and down and screaming because Lance Armstrong, not Lance Armstrong, he was a cyclist, Neil Armstrong. I confused two different people. Neil Armstrong and the rest of the astronauts, they had landed on the moon. But Grandpa wasn't even celebrating. He was sitting out on the porch, I guess listening to everyone else as they celebrated. I wonder what her grandpa was thinking about. When the crickets began to sing, Gramps took out his pipe. I pulled off his dirt-caked boots for him and stomped around the porch. Gramps, will you watch it with me tonight, the moonwalk? I'm mighty worn out today, he said, but maybe. Suddenly, I could see how tired he was. Lifetime tired. There were deep lines in his face. A farmer's face. An old farmer's face. All right, Gramps, I said, it's okay. And look, here's the little girl talking to her grandpa and walking around in his big, dirty boots. Why were his boots so dirty? Well, it's probably because he's a farmer. And so he's always working on the farm, probably in mud and dirt and grass, all kind of stuff that would make his boots super duper dirty. Look, he has on blue socks. Do you see his blue socks? They're right there. I actually have a pair of blue socks. I'm not wearing them now, but I do have a pair of blue socks. Oh, and remember she said that her grandpa looked really tired? He does look a little tired. What do you think? Tired? Not tired? Once upon a summer's night in 1969. Now, do you remember what important thing happened in the story in this year, 1969? Well, astronauts landed on the moon. We spread blankets and folding chairs on the edge of the yard where the buffalo grass grew thick and strong. That's not what the story says. It says that the buffalo grass grew thick and soft. So they were all sitting on the soft grass with their blankets. The corn stalks whispered while we gazed at the pearly slice of moon and the stars gleaming like spilled sugar. Oh, that's a great picture to have in your head. Like if someone spilled sugar and light was kind of shining on it. What were the astronauts seeing right at this very second? Could they see beyond the moon? to Mars or Neptune or Jupiter. We passed around a bowl of popcorn. What I could see above me and what I could see in my imagination were better than any picture show. Picture show is what they used to call movies. They didn't call them movies, they called them picture shows. Look, the whole family created a picnic on the grass with their blankets and chairs at night. What? I wonder how many other families did the exact same thing the day that that Neil Armstrong landed on the moon. Do you think that a lot of families made picnics and put out blankets out on the grass and looked up at the moon? Can you imagine if there were like astronauts on the moon like right now? I would probably go out at night and peer up at the moon and wonder, I wonder what the astronauts are doing and thinking and seeing right now. That's kind of cool. And look, everybody's digging into the popcorn. This story is actually kind of making me a little hungry. Maybe I'll make me some popcorn today. Later on that summer's night in 1969, the television screen flashed with words that gave me goosebumps. Live from the circus of the circus. I am saying all the wrong words today. Live from the surface of the moon. And Mr. Cronkite said, Neil Armstrong, 38-year-old American, standing on the surface of the moon. On this July 20th, 1969. Wow. So July 20th is the day in 1969 that Americans landed on the moon. I didn't know it then, but there were 600 million people the world over watching with me. 600 million? Whoa, that's a lot of people. The world over watching with me and listening when Commander Armstrong said, that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. All of us, from New York to Tokyo, to Paris to Cairo, to Star, and maybe even President Kennedy too. All of us watched it together. The astronauts bounding across the moon. Like ghosts on a trampoline. I felt a hand on my shoulder. I reckon that's something to remember, Gramps said quietly. And look, here's a picture of the astronauts on the moon in 1969. Wow, how cool must it have been to have been alive to witness men landing on the moon? That sounds so cool. Later, when it was as quiet as the world ever gets, Gramps and I stood together under the moon. What's mankind? I asked him. He puffed on his pipe. It's all of us, he finally said. All of us who've ever lived. All of us still to come. I put my hand in his. Just think, Gramps, if they could go to the moon, maybe one day I could too. Oh, the little girl wants to be an astronaut when she grows up. How cool is that? What do you want to be when you grow up? Do you want to be an astronaut too? Like Neil Armstrong in the story? Or maybe you want to choose a different career. guess what? Whatever you want to be, you can be it. All you have to do is study really hard, read a lot, and work really hard. And never, ever give up. Let's keep reading and find out what else happens in the story. Great days, he said. An astronaut in the family. Who'd have thought? I smiled in the dark. My Gramps was proud of me. First airplane I ever saw, I was your age, was right over yonder, Gramps said, nodding toward the cornfields. That was something to see, old boy, something to see. A sigh in Gramps' voice made my heart squeeze. Keep on dreaming, May. Just remember, we're here now together on the prettiest star in the heavens. What star do you think her grandpa was talking about? He was talking about the planet Earth, I think. Gramps. Oh, wait, let me show you the picture. Look, here's a little girl on the porch talking to her grandpa. She's dreaming about being an astronaut and going out into space just like Neil Armstrong. This is so cool. I hope you dream about something that you want to be one day. What did I dream about when I was a kid? I don't even remember. But I do remember that at one point I wanted to run a homeless shelter that would help people who don't have homes, to make sure that they can be safe and warm or cool if it's like hot during the summertime, and that they had food to eat. I remember when I was younger wanting to do that. And then I became a teacher. Gramps had looked to the moon all his life. It told him when to plant and when to harvest. And once upon a summer's night, it told me to dream. And that's the end. I think this is the surface of the moon, and I think that these are footprints from the astronauts who walked on the moon. Well, that is the end of today's story. It's called The Moon Over Star. What a cool story. It's kind of inspiring. It makes me think about all the things that I wanted to be when I grew up. Well, thank you so much for listening to Barbershop Books Storytime today. If you want to learn more information about Barbershop Books or to make a donation, you can visit our website at barbershopbooks.org. You can also connect with us on social media at Barbershop Books. Well, until next time, bye.